I want to speak with you about something that seems to be at the very core of our human endeavor, which is this deep, pervasive, and seemingly logical desire for progress. I received a question, a very human question, which essentially asks, without conflict, without this inner struggle, without the desire to improve, how can there be any progress at all, either in the material world or in our own society? The questioner implies that this desire to change, to become better, is the very motive force for all achievement. If you simply accept what is, they ask, how can there be any kind of progress? It's a fundamental challenge to the very thing we are exploring together, and I am truly glad it has been raised, because we must investigate this thoroughly. So let's look at it. We talk so easily about self-improvement, don't we? It's an entire industry. It's the engine of our culture. But I must ask you, what do we actually mean by it? When you say, I want to improve myself, what is the self that you are seeking to improve? Let's be very honest. Are we talking about improving our selfishness, making it more refined, more sophisticated, more successful? Are we talking about improving our deceit, learning to wear our masks so perfectly that we not only fool others but eventually fool ourselves? Are we talking about improving our hypocrisy, becoming masters of saying one thing while doing another? Are we trying to find a better, more efficient way to manage our angers, our anxieties, our profound inner pain and sorrows, not to be free of them, but to make them more manageable so we can continue to function? Or perhaps, is it something simpler? When you say self-improvement, do you just mean getting more money, achieving a better position in your company, acquiring more physical comfort, a bigger house, a faster car? Now let's be clear. There is nothing inherently wrong with having comfort. A body needs food, shelter, and security. That is obvious. But is that what we mean? Is the entire human psychological drama really about improving our ability to acquire? Before we can answer what improvement is, we must surely understand what the self is. Could we, you and I, go into that together right now? What are you? You are, first, a name. You have a form, a physical appearance, the shape of your body, the way you look. But apart from that, what are you? You are the sum total of all that you have been taught, all that you have accumulated in your school, your college, your university, if you were, as they say, lucky enough to go through all that. You are what your environment, your culture, your tradition has impressed upon your brain. You are your tradition. You are your collection of beliefs, your fears, your anxieties, your hidden hypocrisies. The person who says, I love you, while feeling something else entirely. You are all of that. That is the actual, factual you. Or perhaps do you think you are something much more than that? This is a very popular idea, isn't it? That you are a higher self, a super consciousness, an Atman, a divine spark. But I ask you to look at where that idea came from. If you say you are something super, something beyond the mundane, isn't that concept also the result of your thinking? Thought, observing this messy, contradictory, frightened self, doesn't like what it sees. And so, thought projects an idea of something pure, something permanent, something higher. You have been told you are a divine soul, and so you create an image of that divinity, and then you spend the rest of your life in the struggle to progress from the self you are to the self you think you should be. But you see, that higher self is still just a product of thought, born from the known, born from tradition. It is a marvelous, beautiful, and comforting trap. So, you are the whole movement of thought, whether it calls itself low or high. This is the self. Given this, I ask you again, what is there to improve? Can you improve your selfishness? You can certainly make it more efficient, more polite, more socially acceptable, but it remains selfishness. Can you improve your agony? Can you improve your sense of despair or your fundamental loneliness? You can't, can you? You can cover it up, you can run from it, you can numb it with entertainment, with drugs, with gurus, with endless acquisitions, but you cannot improve it. What is possible, however, is to be free from all of it, completely. The self, this bundle of memory and fear, is not something to be improved. It is something to be understood, and in that very understanding, to be free of. This is so simple, and yet we resist it profoundly. Now, the questioner also spoke of progress in the world. This is where we get so confused. We see the movement from the bullock cart to the jet plane and now to the instantaneous digital communication that allows me to speak to you, and we call that progress. And in one sense, it is a progress of knowledge, of technology. But what about social progress? What about human progress? In the past, a man killed another with a bow and arrow. Now we can kill millions from an office halfway across the world by pressing a button, or we can annihilate entire cities with an atom bomb. Is this progress? We call it that, don't we? We call it advancement. But psychologically, has anything changed at all? Or have we just found more terrifyingly efficient ways to express our ancient violence, our tribalism, our greed? Socially, is there progress? Or are we just finding new, more cunning ways to go around the laws, to cheat on our taxes, to exploit one another? The richer one becomes, the more cunning one often has to be. We call all of this progress. But I'm asking you, is there any psychological progress at all? Does the human heart progress? This is a tremendously complex problem, because the very idea of progress implies movement in time. Progress means I start from what I am, and over a period of time I move, I change, I transform myself into what I should be. This implies time is necessary. So let's look at this question of time together, because this idea of progress is entirely entangled with it. There is, of course, a time by the watch, a time by the rising and setting of the sun. This is chronological time, and it is a simple, factual necessity of our physical world. Time is required for a plant to grow from a seed, for a baby to mature into an adult. I need time to learn a language, to acquire a new skill, to become an engineer or a carpenter or even a crooked politician. That is obvious. We need time to travel from one place to another. This physical time is not what we are questioning. But there is another kind of time, isn't there? The time that we have invented in our own minds. This is psychological time. This is the time of becoming. This is the time of hope and achievement, the time that says, I am this now, but I will be that tomorrow. I am ignorant, but I will be enlightened. I am lonely, but I will find fulfillment. I am not good enough, but I will improve myself. This entire movement from what is to what should be is a movement in psychological time. And it is this very time that I am asking you to question, for it may be the root of our conflict and sorrow. Our whole society is built on this. We are conditioned from childhood to become something. You must make something of yourself. This creates a constant grinding friction between the fact of what you are and the idea of what you should be. You see this in our modern obsession with hustle culture, where people are encouraged to sacrifice their present, their health, their relationships, all for a future imagined state of success. You are never at peace because you are always in transit, always on the way to a destination that thought has projected. You see it in the anxieties of social media, this desperate need to accumulate followers, to project an image of a happy, successful life, all in the hope that one day this image will become the reality, that you will be loved, that you will be seen. This will be the very essence of psychological time. Now, let's bring this back to our question. I need time to learn a skill. But to be free from violence, from this inner brutality, does that need time? Please, let's find out. You and I. I am violent, let's say. That is the fact. What is my conditioning, my tradition, my gurus, my society all tell me you must not be violent, you must become non-violent. So I invent a goal, an ideal called non-violence, and I say, I will achieve this state. This creates a movement from the fact to the non-fact, the ideal. And this movement, this process requires time, does it not? I will practice, I will meditate, I will control myself day after day, and gradually I will get rid of my violence. But what is happening during this interval? What is happening in this time I have given myself to improve? I am still violent. I am sowing the seeds of violence every single day, perhaps controlling the outward expression, but the root of it is still there, festering, suppressed. A man who says, I'm trying to be non-violent, is a violent man. The very trying is a form of conflict, a subtle justification for the present state of violence. He is being violent all the time, all the while deceiving himself with the idea that he is making progress toward a future goal. So, is it not clear that any gradual process to be free of a psychological social disease like violence is not a solution at all, but is in fact a perpetuation of the disease? You are just giving it more time to exist. Therefore, through time, there can be no end to violence. This is a logical conclusion, is it not? So, we must ask a question that may seem impossible. a question that challenges the very structure of our brain. Is it possible to be free of violence instantly? That is, without any time at all. Now, please don't just say yes or no. Our brains are conditioned to the idea of gradually, of process, of cause and effect, so we immediately resist this. But let's investigate. Why do we live in this division? The problem, perhaps, lies in how we observe the violence within us. When I am violent, I observe it as I, the observer. Looking at violence, the thing that is observed, I am the thinker, the censor, the one who judges, and violence is the separate, ugly thing that I must get rid of, or control, or suppress. So there is me and there is my anger. There is me and my greed. This division is the very I who says I must take time to change. But is this division real? Is the observer, this I, any different from the thing he observes? When you are angry, are you separate from the anger? Or is the anger you? When you are greedy, are you just an innocent bystander watching greed pass by? Or are you, in that moment, the very sensation and movement of greed? The observer, the I, is simply a fragment of thought, a bundle of memories and past experiences, who comes along and names the present feeling. It says, this is anger, and by naming it, it separates itself from it, creating this false duality. The thinker is the thought. The observer is the observed. Now, what happens if you see this? Not as an intellectual theory, not as something you agree or disagree with, but if you see the absolute profound truth of it, that you are the violence, you are not a good person struggling against bad violence. You are the violence. The very observer who says, I must change, is the violence. What happens then? When this is seen, the division ends. The conflict between the observer and the observed ceases because they are one. The I who wants to improve himself, who wants to progress over time, is seen to be a fiction. He is absent. There is only that state, the state of violence. And all the energy that was previously wasted in suppressing, in escaping, in trying to improve, in this endless, exhausting psychological progress, all that energy is now available for total observation. When you observe without the observer, that is, without the division, without the past, without the idea of time, when there is only that state of complete attention, that thing you are looking at totally disappears. You can test this. You can do it. And this transformation, this freedom is instantaneous. It is not an act of time. This then is the answer to progress, real social change, which is the transformation of the relationship between human beings, does not require time. It requires this immediate, timeless insight. We have seen, you and I, that this idea of gradual progress in our psychological world is a form of self-deception, a trick of time that perpetuates the very suffering we wish to end. And we have seen that real freedom, the freedom from violence, from envy, from fear, must be instantaneous, a timeless, total observation in which the division between me and my problem ceases to exist. This brings us to a profound and necessary question. How does this transformation take place? What is the energy for this change? Is it an action of will? Or, if not will, must it be some outside agency, some external factor, God, a savior, some spiritual force that must intervene to bring it about? We are so conditioned to believe it must be one of these two. Either I force the change through my own effort, or I must pray for an external power to grant it to me. Let's look at this together. First, what is this will that we prize so highly? We say, I will stop smoking, I will be a better person, I will control my anger. When you use that word, I will, what do you actually mean? Let's go into it. Is it not, at its very root, a form of desire? When you look closely, isn't will simply desire that has become focused, concentrated, and determined? It is the summation of desire given a direction and a sharp edge. I desire to be healthy, so I will stop smoking. I desire the social or spiritual rewards of being good, so I will be a better person. The will is the engine, but desire is the fuel. So, to understand if will can transform us, we must first understand the entire nature of desire itself. This is not something to be frightened of or to be suppressed, as so many religions have told us. It is something to be understood with clarity and affection. What is desire? You desire a house. You desire a man or a woman. You desire success or money or a position of power. Or perhaps you are more sophisticated, so you desire to be famous, to be popular. Look at our modern world, this vast structure built on desire. You desire to be an influencer, to have thousands of people follow you, which is just the old desire for the guru's power translated into a new digital language. You desire to be a thought leader. You desire to be seen, to be known, to be loved. Or, on the spiritual path, you desire enlightenment. You desire to reach God. You desire to be free from the self. It is all the movement of desire. So, how does it arise? Let's trace it very simply. Does it not begin with sensation? The responses of the senses are natural, are they not? I see, I hear, I touch. I see a beautiful tree, a stunning sunset. I hear a piece of music that is extraordinarily complex and moving. I see a person with a beautiful face or a lovely form. This is perception, contact, and then sensation. This is a normal, healthy, vital part of being alive. If you didn't have these sensory responses, you would be paralyzed, dead. But desire is not sensation. Something else happens. Let's take an example. You see a beautiful car in a showroom. You see it. That is perception. You have a response. That is sensation. What a beautiful line. What a marvelous color. Up to this point, all is simple. Then what takes place? What is the next step that brings this powerful, demanding thing called desire into being? This is the crucial step. Thought intervenes. Thought looks at the sensation and says, how I wish I had that car. Thought creates the image of you driving that car. It creates the image of the pleasure you will get from it, the image of what your friends will think, the image of the status and the power it will give you. The moment thought identifies itself with the sensation and creates an image of me possessing or me experiencing, that is the very beginning of desire. Do you see this step by step? Sensation is one thing, but then thought, which is the repository of all our memories of pleasure and pain, takes that sensation and projects it into the future. It builds an image of me and my fulfillment through that thing. And that image, that projection, is desire. Desire is sensation plus the image created by thought. Therefore, desire is inextricably linked to thought and to time. Now, let's go back. Can this movement, desire, and its concentrated form will bring about a fundamental transformation? You have an image of what transformation is, don't you? You've read about it. You've heard people talk about it. You have an image of being a peaceful person, an enlightened person. And you desire that image. You say, I will achieve that state. But this is the exact same process as desiring the car. You are just substituting a spiritual image for a material one. You are still caught in the same mechanical loop, sensation followed by thought, creating an image, followed by desire, followed by will. This cannot possibly be transformation. It is just modification. It is the self, the me, trying to decorate its own prison cell. It is me who is violent, creating an image of non-violence and then using will to struggle toward that image, all the while remaining violent. Real transformation, as we saw, is the ending of this entire image-making process. It is the capacity to see the beautiful tree and for thought not to create the image of me owning it. It is to see the beautiful car and for thought not to build an identity around it. It is to feel the sensation, the beauty, the vitality of the moment and let it be without thought capturing it and turning it into a goal. Can sensation remain pure and total while thought with its image making remains quiet? When this is seen, you see that will and desire are part of the very structure of the self we are investigating. They cannot be the solution. They are, in fact, the very essence of the problem. So, if we see, as we have, that our own will and desire are part of the very problem, part of the very structure of the self that is in sorrow, what is the alternative? When the I, the me, fails to improve itself, where does the mind inevitably turn? It turns outward. It seeks an outside agency, an external savior to do the job for it. This is the other great hope of mankind, isn't it? That if I cannot change myself, something else, something greater, wiser, or more powerful must come and save me. What do we mean by this outside agency? We mean a leader, a guru, an authority, a sacred book. We mean a political ideology, a new system, or ultimately we mean God. We have had millennia of this, have we not? For centuries upon centuries, we have had leaders, both political and religious. We have had gurus who have come and promised us the way, the method, the secret. We have had so-called sacred books filled with rules and commandments and promises of an afterlife, all of which are external pressures put upon us to change. And I ask you, look at the world and look at yourself honestly. Has all that helped you to change? Has it made you a different human being? Has it ended your violence, your greed, your fear, your profound loneliness? Has it made you compassionate, loving, and supremely intelligent? Let us be factual. We are what we are: miserable, confused, uncertain, insecure, suffering, anxious, and going through agony. And yet we still follow. We are so desperate for an answer that we line up behind the next person who speaks with authority, the next influencer who promises a 10-step plan to happiness. We have had all these external authorities, and nothing has fundamentally changed. Therefore, you have to find out a different way, which is not to rely on anyone. And I truly mean this. I am not helping you. Please take that in. I am not your teacher. I am not your authority. I am not helping you. The moment I help you, I become another crutch, another outside agency that you depend on, and you are lost. My only purpose in speaking is to point at the facts so that you, by yourself, can look at yourself. The only help is self-help, which is to say you must be your own light. You have relied on leaders and authorities for centuries, and you are where you are. So when we dismiss the gurus and the leaders, the mind, still frightened, turns to its ultimate outside agency, God. Most of us believe in God. I don't know why, but we do. Let's be very honest with ourselves and find out why. We believe because we are frightened, don't we? Our life is so uncertain, so insecure. We face pain, loss, and the inevitability of death. We are fundamentally lonely, and thought, the very instrument of our mind, cannot bear this uncertainty. It cannot live with I don't know. So what does it do? It does the only thing it knows how to do. It projects an image. It projects a principle, a symbol, an idea of perfect, absolute, and eternal security. It imagines an all-powerful, all-knowing, all-loving being who has a plan, who gives life meaning, who will protect us. And that image, that projection, gives us a great sense of comfort, a great sense of security. We call that projection God. And so the God that the vast majority of people worship, that God you have made, it is a projection of your own mind, of your own desire for comfort and safety. Thought created God. We are insecure, so thought, which is the repository of all our past memories and fears, creates an image of perfect security. We feel small and powerless, so thought creates an image of absolute power. We are in confusion, so thought creates an image of ultimate order. And then, in a most extraordinary trick, the mind forgets that it created the image and it begins to worship it. We build vast cathedrals, temples, and mosques to house this idea, this image we created. We fight brutal wars, killing each other over which projection, which image is the true one. But it is all a movement of thought, a product of our own conditioning. Relying on this God to save you is simply the me relying on its own glorified, perfected, projected shadow. It is not freedom. It is the most sophisticated psychological trap ever devised. Now, you might say, but who created the universe? Surely that's God. That is a different inquiry altogether, and it is largely a wrong question, a distraction. We are not talking about some unknowable, abstract first cause. We are talking about the psychological need for a savior, for an outside agency to help us change. And for that, we have only this God of thought, the God of our fear. So we see that our entire life is run on this basis, a cause and a motive. I am frightened, though I invent God. I am lonely, so I seek a relationship. I want to be something. I want to get money. I want to be spiritual. Our whole existence is this chain of I do this because I want that. This is the very nature of cause and effect in the psychological realm. And this brings us to the real question. I am asking you and asking myself, is there a state of mind in which there has been no cause? Is it possible to live without a cause, without a motive? To find out, you must investigate this. Can you find out if there is an action that is not born from a motive? We think love has a cause, don't we? I love you because you are beautiful, because you are good to me, because you give me pleasure or security. But is that love, or is that just a transaction, a form of exchange? When you say, I love you because, the because is the cause, the motive. And if that cause is removed, if you are no longer beautiful or no longer good to me, the love disappears. So that is not love. Love surely is a state that has no cause, no motive. It is not a reaction. It is not an effect. It simply is. Can we think along that line? Can we find out if there is a way of living, of acting, of loving that is wholly without cause? This brings us to a beautiful idea, one that is so prevalent in our spiritual world, the idea of obtaining something spiritually. How lovely that sounds, doesn't it? It's the crown jewel of self-improvement. We've given up on the car, perhaps, or the big house, and now we are on a higher path. We want to obtain enlightenment, achieve peace, acquire bliss, get satori. But do you really see that this is the exact same trap, just dressed in holier robes? It is the same movement of the me, the self, who wants to get something. The I who is in pain seeks enlightenment. It is the same structure of desire, the same projection of thought, the same movement in psychological time. You have just exchanged a worldly object for a spiritual one, and you are as caught as you ever were. So I must ask you again, with all seriousness, as this is the very crux of our human problem. Is it possible to live, to act, without a single cause, without a single motive? This is the real meditation. It is not the silly stuff that has become so popular, the sitting and breathing and chanting, which is all done in order to get a result. You meditate to relax. You meditate to have a spiritual experience. You meditate to reduce your stress. That is, you are using a technique as a cause to produce a desired effect. It is a transaction. It is the marketplace, not freedom. The real meditation, the real inquiry is this very thing we are doing now. It is to find out if the mind, your mind, can be free from this entire structure of cause and effect. It is to be aware of what is your anger, your loneliness, your fear so completely that the me who wants to do something about it, the me who has a motive to fix it or get rid of it, is simply not there. This is an awareness without a center, without the me who is aware. The questioner in the original text hinted at this. Is there a state of mind in which there is no cause, they asked, and therefore eternal? This is the real question. What is the eternal? It is not everlasting time, which is just a terrifying, endless projection of the time we know. The eternal, the timeless, must be a state that is not of time at all. And what is time, psychologically? It is the movement from what I am to what I should be. It is the product of cause and effect. I am this, so I must become that. This movement, this becoming, is time. When the mind is caught in a chain of motives, I act because I want, I believe because I am afraid, it is caught in time. But when there is an action that has no motive, no cause, when you see a flower and there is only the seeing, not the me who sees and says, I want it, or it reminds me of yesterday in that moment, there is no me. And if there is no me, there is no becoming. And if there is no becoming, psychological time has come to a stop. That state, that quality of mind is what one might call the eternal. It is not something you obtain. It is a quality of life that emerges when the self, with its endless network of causes, is seen for the fiction it is and naturally falls away. This is why, as we touched upon, love is not a cause. It is not a motive. It is not a reaction. You see, if I love you because you are good to me, because you give me security or pleasure or a sense of family, then that is not love. It is a contract, a bargain. And when you cease to be good to me or to provide that security, the love turns to disappointment, to bitterness, to hate. That love is born of a cause, and therefore it is part of the world of time, conflict, and sorrow. But real love is an action without a cause. It is a state of being, just as the flower is beautiful without a motive. It is a state in which the self, the me, who is always calculating, always wanting, always afraid, is completely absent. And therefore this love is not the opposite of hate, it is a state entirely outside that duality. It is the very essence of a mind that is free. This is the transformation we have been seeking, the only transformation. It is not self-improvement, it is the end of the self. And it is not found in time or through will or by any outside agency. It is found only in the complete, choiceless, motiveless observation of what is from moment to moment